You may or may not know the fact that the end of the church calendar, the Feast of Christ the King, wraps up the church calendar year, and then we move on to Advent this coming Sunday, the first Sunday of Advent. Well, all the scripture this past weekend and beyond really has been speaking much about apocalyptic literature, whereby apocalyptic literature is whereby we have an opportunity to make sense out of the present by looking at the past. Make sense out of the present by also looking forward to the end times as well. So it's an opportunity to really reflect on what's going on right in front of us and then find some meaning by looking into the future. Apocalyptic literature. Daniel, in the first reading this past Sunday, speaks to us and speaks to the people of Israel who had been exiled to Babylonia. And while in exile, they were deeply in despair. Wasn't sure if God was with them or not. As they sat along the river Babylon, they wept and they wondered if God was truly with them. And Daniel has an apocalyptic vision. And in his vision, he shares with the people, God will make sense of this. God is bringing order out of the chaos of our lives, and God will make sense out of all it is that we're dealing with right at this particular time. So that's 600 years before the time of Christ, the prophet Daniel offering this prophetic message to the poor folks of Israel who had been beaten to the pulp by the Babylonians, sent out to starve and to die, and then exiled from their homeland. Daniel is able to say, God is creating order out of the chaos. Now, as we reflect upon our world these days, it's not hard for us to see much in the way of chaos. With what happened in Paris a couple of weeks ago, and just this past week in Mali, the atrocities that have happened and the death that has happened to our family members, community, etc., very, very difficult for us to embrace. There is uncertainty, and we can only be certain about the fact that God is bringing order out of this chaos. And as we continue to move forward, we also recognize that our State Department just last night talked about a worldwide travel alert, whereby with this coming week, Thanksgiving week, more folks travel this particular week than any time throughout the year. There's a worldwide travel alert. You talk about uncertainty. You talk about frightened. They must be, and we folks, as we know, are as frightened as the poor folks in Israel who had been exiled to Babylonia. So we need to know that God is bringing order out of the chaos. As we move to the first Sunday of Advent this coming week, we are mindful of the end times as well, and we are also reminded to be alert, to recognize that Christ is going to come at a time when we least expect it, and therefore we are invited to be ready, to be prepared, and to be alert day in and day out. That means for us, of course, embracing God in our lives on a more permanent, regular, consistent basis. As we celebrate the first Sunday of Advent here at St. Anne's, we invite you to church. We invite you to come see us, to come join with us. We invite you to sign your children up for our Christmas pageant just a few weeks away. We invite you to be engaged in the Living Compass program coming up here and throughout the month of December. Our Christmas caroling program is in full gear and ready to go on the third Sunday of Advent as well. It's an exciting, exciting time. It's a time for a new beginning. So if you haven't been around in a while, it's all good. But Advent is a wonderful time for you because it's an uncertain time we live in. We need one another. We need fellowship. We need Jesus in communion. We need this opportunity to gather with like-minded people that we can therefore get through this very uncertain time of a worldwide travel alert. Can you imagine that? So with Advent here, you are welcome to join us. We invite you to come back to us during this Advent, this time of new beginnings, as we embrace new opportunities in 2015, moving towards 2016. Thanks for your time this morning.